I used to have a really hard time stripping furniture, and for a while, I had no idea what I was doing wrong. I started experimenting with different products and methods, and I finally come up with a system that works for me. Since I struggled so much in the beginning, I wanted to put everything I knew in one video so that if you too are having issues, you can see exactly what works for me. Start by applying Citri Strip to a section of your furniture. You can't apply too much of this stuff. A little does not go a long way, and you want a really thick layer covering your piece, else it's likely to dry out and not work. I tend to use a cheap foam brush to apply the stuff, that way I can throw it away and not have to mess around cleaning it with mineral spirits when I'm done. I always use Citri Strip as my stripping agent. I've tried other things, but the stronger stuff has the same tendency to dry out as Citri Strip and is more dangerous. Plus, it eats through plastic wrap, meaning it's also more difficult to work with. Since they're all around the same price, Citri Strip is the clear winner. Once you've coated a small section of the piece with Citri Strip, cover it with plastic wrap. This stops the Citri Strip from drying out and gives it time to work. I always work in small sections because the Citri Strip dries out quickly without the plastic wrap. I also try to strip furniture on cooler, cloudy days because heat and direct sunlight also speed up the dry time. I know I'm making a big deal out of keeping the Citri Strip wet, but if it dries onto your piece, it doesn't work and it's a pain to remove. Let the Citri Strip sit on the piece for at least 30 minutes, then scrape it off with a plastic putty knife. Any paint and finish should come right off. Anywhere it doesn't is probably a place where the Citri Strip wasn't thick enough. This is super messy, so be sure you have a tarp on the ground and a bucket or something ready to catch the goop. Just like before, I like to work in small sections so that the plastic wrap keeps the Citri Strip wet until I'm ready to remove it. It's also really important that you use a plastic putty knife. I tried using a metal one once when I was desperate and ended up scratching my piece like crazy. Once you've scraped the bulk of the Citri Strip off your piece, there's probably a fair amount of residue left. I've tried a bunch of things to get this off, but what seems to work the best for me is pouring mineral spirits on the piece and scrubbing with a Scotch-Brite pad. There's definitely some elbow grease involved, but it's the most effective thing I've found so far. Then I'll sand the piece. I typically start with 40 grit sandpaper and sand until all the former finish and stain is removed and everything is an even shade. Then I'll work my way up to 240 grit sandpaper to make sure everything is smooth. A quality orbital sander is essential to this part, and I can't imagine doing the project without one. I've linked to my favorite sander in the description below if you're on the lookout for one. Once I'm down to bare wood, the stripping portion of the project is done. Here's how the two projects I used in this video turned out. If you'd like more information on either of them, I've linked to their videos in the description below. And if you'd like more information on my method of stripping furniture, check out the full blog post, which is also linked in the description. Thanks, and don't forget to hit subscribe.